Sergei Volkov woke up to a piercing squeal. The pigs had started again. For the fourth night in a row, his pigs were causing a real commotion near the old barn. The farmer pulled on his rubber boots and went out into the yard. The September morning of 2019 greeted him with fog and the smell of rotten leaves. 12 pigs were huddled in the far corner of the plot, furiously digging the ground with their hooves. "What did you find there, you striped devils?" Sergei muttered. He had bought this abandoned plot 3 months ago. The former owner had sold the land for a pittance, as if he were in a hurry to get rid of the cursed place. The locals were strangely silent when Sergei asked about the history of the place. Before we begin the story, please write which city you are from. We are very interested to know where you are watching our video from. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave your rating. The pigs were digging in the same spot. Marfa, the calmest of the herd, was acting like a madwoman. She refused to eat, wouldn't let the piglets near her, and just dug and dug at the black earth. "What's up, Marfushka? Found some truffles?" Sergei crouched down next to her. The pig raised her eyes, red from the strain, to look at him. There was something human in them, something like a plea. 21 years ago, in October 1998, in the same village of Malinovka, an event took place that the old-timers still whisper about. Anna Petrova, the best pig farmer at the Rosvet State Farm, had disappeared. Anna was an unusual woman for her time. At 34, she was raising 2 school-age children, worked from morning to night, and never complained about her lot in life. She always wore her dark blonde hair in a tight braid, and her calloused hands revealed her to be a true hard worker. On the night of October 15th, 16, Anna went to check on the pigs before going to bed, as usual. One of the piglets was sick in the pigsty. Anna cared for each animal as if it were her own child. "I'll go check on Bork," she said to her neighbor, Claudia Semenovna, around 11 o'clock in the evening. "He's been acting very strange." Those were the last words anyone ever heard from Anna Petrova. In the morning, the children woke up to an empty house. Their mother had not returned. In the pigsty, they discovered that 10 piglets were missing, including the sick Bork. Anna herself had vanished into thin air. The local police officer, Nikolai Krotov, did not accept the missing persons report until a week later. Anna's husband, Viktor Petrov, appeared at the village council with eyes swollen from a hangover and reported indifferently, "My wife left. She took the piglets. Probably ran off with her lover." Krotov looked suspiciously at the disheveled man. He knew the whole village. Anna Petrova was an exemplary wife and mother. She couldn't possibly have had any lovers. "Where are the children?" asked the local police officer. "At their aunt's. Let them live there." Victor hiccuped and added, "I'll be better off without a wife." The formal investigation began and ended with remarkable speed. Krotov questioned several neighbors, inspected the Petrovs' house, and drew up a report. 2 weeks later, the case was closed due to lack of evidence. The director of the state farm, Mikhail Gromov, personally ensured that the story did not become public knowledge. The stocky man with gold teeth and a bald head had connections in the district center. One phone call was enough to send the case to the archives. "There's no need to panic," Gromov said at a general meeting. "The woman decided to start a new life. These things happen." But the villagers whispered among themselves, Anna would never have abandoned her children, and she certainly wouldn't have stolen the piglets. She loved them, but not enough to lose her job and her home. Sergei Volkov didn't know this story when he bought the abandoned plot. He was only interested in the fertile land and the low price. The former owner, 70-year-old Ivan Kuzmich, was in a hurry to sell the land as if it were cursed. "Take it, boy, take it quickly," the old man insisted. "This land gives me no peace. I have bad dreams." Sergei decided that the old man was just upset about leaving his ancestral home. He paid the money, signed the papers, and started building a farm. He brought in pigs in August. Purebred, healthy animals. The first month went smoothly. The pigs quickly settled in, ate well, and grew rapidly. Sergei was happy with his purchase and made plans to expand the farm. But in September, strange things began to happen. At first, the pigs became restless at night. Then they refused to go into the far corner of the plot. And in the last week, they went completely crazy, digging the ground in one spot with maniacal persistence. "Maybe there's a water pipe there?" Sergei suggested, studying the plot plan. There were no utilities marked on the diagram. But the pigs continued to dig, as if they sensed something that was inaccessible to humans. On Saturday morning, Sergei decided to solve the mystery once and for all. He took a shovel and went to the spot the pigs had chosen. The ground there was softer than elsewhere, as if it had been dug up many years ago. "Well, girls, show me what's bothering you so much," the farmer said to the pigs. Marfa came closer and nudged Sergei's leg with her snout. Her little eyes pleaded, "Dig! You must dig!" The shovel went into the ground easily. The first half-meter revealed only black soil mixed with clay. Sergei was already beginning to doubt the wisdom of the undertaking when the metal struck something hard. "There it is," muttered the farmer. At a depth of about a meter lay an old metal box. It was the size of a small suitcase, covered with rust, but still sturdy. It was Soviet-made, probably from the late 1980s. Sergei carefully extracted his find. The box was heavier than it looked. Something rattled inside when he shook it. The lock had long since rotted away, and the lid gave way without effort. There were documents in the box. The first thing Sergei saw was a school notebook with squares. On the cover, in a child's handwriting, was written, "Diary of Anna Petrova. 98. If you find this, it means I am no longer here." The farmer's heart skipped a beat. He opened the notebook at random and read the entry from October 10th, 1998. "Today I found another certificate." Morozov signed more fake documents. Sick piglets were sent to the meat processing plant as healthy ones. How much contaminated meat has already reached people? How many children have been poisoned by this poison? Sergei's hands trembled. He leafed through the pages, and the picture became clearer. Anna Petrova had uncovered a criminal scheme at the state farm. Someone was selling sick pigs and passing them off as healthy. There were other documents in the box. Veterinary reports, photographs of dead piglets, copies of meat delivery notes, a whole dossier on a corrupt group. "My God," Sergei whispered. She was gathering evidence. The last entry in the diary was dated October 15th, 1998, the day Anna disappeared. "Tomorrow I'm going to the prosecutor. I'm taking the piglets with me as witnesses. They have characteristic symptoms of poisoning. If anything happens to me, all the evidence is in this box. Victor is being paid to keep quiet. Gromov knows that I found out everything. Morozov looked at me today as if he was planning to kill me." The pigs stood around Sergei in a tight circle. Marfa grunted quietly, as if to say, Finally, you understand." The farmer turned the last pages of the diary. Anna wrote about her children, about how she feared for their future. about how she couldn't remain silent when she saw people being tortured for money. "Mom always said, 'Silence is complicity,'" read one of the entries. "I cannot be an accomplice to the murder of children." There was also a letter in the drawer addressed to whoever finds these documents. Anna had foreseen her fate. "If you are reading this, it means that the criminals have silenced me forever. I beg you, don't let them get away with it. There is enough evidence in these documents to put the whole gang behind bars. Don't let my death be in vain." Sergei closed the diary. The picture was becoming clearer, but the main question remained unanswered. Who killed Anna Petrova? Which of the participants in the criminal scheme decided to take extreme measures? Her husband, Victor, received money for his wife's silence. But was he capable of murder? Director Gromov had connections and power, but did he personally get his hands dirty? Veterinarian Morozov falsified documents, but did he become a murderer? Other names were mentioned in the documents. Local police officer Krotov, who closed the case too quickly. Meat processing plant manager Sinitsyn, who accepted contaminated products. Kindergarten director Orlova, who kept quiet about the mass poisoning of children, a whole network of accomplices. But which one of them became the executioner? Sergei looked at the pigs. The animals had been acting strangely from the very beginning, as if they sensed the presence of the dead. Perhaps Anna Petrova's body was lying somewhere nearby. "Girls, where's the mistress?" the farmer asked quietly. Marfa moved a few meters away and began digging in a new spot. The other pigs followed her. They dug with even more fury than before. Sergei took a shovel and joined the search. If Anna Petrova had been killed, her body must be somewhere nearby. The criminal couldn't have taken the victim far away. It was too risky in a small village. The earth under the shovel was dense and compacted. Someone had carefully concealed this place 21 years ago. At a depth of 1.5 meters, the shovel struck something soft. Sergei carefully raked away the earth with his hands. Under a layer of clay, a piece of decayed fabric appeared. "We found it," whispered the farmer. He called the police without continuing the excavation. Experts had to work professionally at the burial site. But even without an examination, it was clear that human remains lay here. While waiting for the investigators to arrive, Sergei reread Anna's diary. The woman had a premonition of her death, but she did not know who would kill her. She suspected everyone involved in the criminal scheme. Victor started drinking even more. He gets the money and keeps quiet about what I know. But will he have the courage to raise his hand against the mother of his children? Gromov called me to his office today. He offered me money to keep quiet. When I refused, I saw something terrible in his eyes. Morozov is avoiding me. When our eyes meet, he quickly looks away. He knows that I found out about his fake documents. 3 suspects, 3 motives. But which one of them is the killer? The investigators arrived 2 hours later. Senior Lieutenant Peter Vasiliev turned out to be a sensible man who took the discovery very seriously. 21 years. Vasiliev shook his head. Studying the documents from the drawer, the case was formally closed. Apparently, someone didn't want an investigation. Experts began working on the remains. A preliminary examination showed that the body belonged to a middle-aged woman. Next to the human bones lay the remains of several piglets. "They killed the witnesses," the investigator stated grimly. Sergei showed the police all the documents he had found: Anna's diary, the vet's reports, photos of sick animals, a whole dossier on a criminal gang. The motive for the murder is obvious. Vasiliev concluded. The woman discovered serious violations and gathered evidence. Someone decided to silence her forever. But who exactly? There were several suspects in the case, each of whom had a reason to want the whistleblower dead. Investigators began searching for those involved in the events of 20 years ago. It turned out that most of them were still alive. Viktor Petrov, the husband of the deceased, died 5 years ago of cirrhosis of the liver. The director of the state farm, Mikhail Gromov, became a major entrepreneur in the regional center. Veterinarian Alexei Morozov lived in retirement in a neighboring district. Local police officer Nikolai Krotov, who closed the case, was in a nursing home. The head of the meat processing plant, Sinitsyn, had moved to another region. The head of the kindergarten, Orlova, had worked in the same position until recently. Let's start questioning everyone on the list, Vasiliev decided. One of them knows the truth. But the interviews showed that every suspect had a solid alibi for the night of the murder. Viktor Petrov was on a binge at a neighbor's house. Gromov was attending a district meeting. Morozov was on duty at the veterinary clinic. Too convenient, too perfect. The breakthrough came when experts examined the burial site in detail. A piece of rebar was found near the remains, presumably the murder weapon. Traces of paint remained on the metal. The paint is green, a specific shade, the expert reported. This is the color used to paint farm buildings in the late 1990s. It was a breakthrough. The killer had used rebar from the farm. This meant that the crime had taken place there and nowhere else. The investigators dug up the 1998 plans for the Rasvet farm. 3 buildings were painted green: the main office, the veterinary clinic, and the feed warehouse. We're narrowing down the suspects, said Vasiliev. The killer had access to one of these buildings. The office was under the jurisdiction of Director Gromov. The veterinary clinic was at Morozov's disposal. The feed warehouse was shared, but several people had keys, including the quartermaster and the chief zoo technician. But the main discovery was yet to come. Upon closer examination of the remains, experts discovered something else. A tiny piece of metal was stuck in the skull. Analysis showed that it was a piece of the same rebar that lay next to the body. The blow was delivered with tremendous force, concluded the forensic expert. The perpetrator struck the victim repeatedly, in a state of passion or rage. This changed the psychological profile of the killer. It was not cold-blooded calculation, but an explosion of emotions. Which of the suspects was capable of such cruelty? Viktor Petrov was a weak-willed alcoholic who was used to solving problems by running away, not by violence. Gromov was a calculating businessman who would have preferred to buy silence or use his connections. Morozov. But Morozov was different. He was thin, nervous, with sharp features. His colleagues remembered him as quick-tempered and prone to hysterics. He had already had several conflicts with farm workers. Morozov could have snapped, suggested one of the investigators, if Anna had cornered him with evidence, but these were only assumptions. Facts were needed. The facts were found in the most unexpected place. The investigators decided to question the village elders who remembered the events of 1998. Klavdia Semenovna, a neighbor of the deceased, revealed an important detail. Anna came to me that day very upset. She said she had caught Morozov at the vet's office in the act of betrayal. He wasn't just signing fake certificates, he was infecting the animals himself. This changed everything. If Morozov deliberately infected the pigs so that he could then treat them and make a double profit, the motive for murder became even stronger. Anna said she saw him giving the piglets some kind of injection. continued Klavdia Semenovna. And then a week later, he declared an epidemic and demanded money for treatment. A cynical scheme. Morozov created problems himself and then took money to solve them. He sold sick animals as healthy ones, making triple profits. Armed with new information, the investigators went to Alexei Morozov. The 78-year-old pensioner lived in a small apartment in the district center. The door was opened by a thin old man with sharp features. A nervous tic twitched his left eye, the same trait his colleagues remembered from 20 years ago. Alexei Ivanovich Morozov? Investigator Vasiliev introduced himself. Yes, replied the old man warily. Who are you? When the police officers stated the purpose of their visit, Morozov's face changed, his nervous twitch intensified, and his hands began to shake. I don't know any Anna Petrova, he said quickly. That was a long time ago. I don't remember anything. But his reaction said otherwise. Morozov remembered everything very well. The interrogation dragged on for several hours. Morozov remained silent, denied everything, and claimed poor memory. But when he was shown Anna's diary with specific accusations, the old man began to give in. Yes, there were violations, he finally admitted, but not that serious, just paperwork in Soviet times. Red tape? Vasiliev asked harshly. You sold contaminated meat to kindergartens. Morozov turned pale. His nervous tic became quite noticeable. She lied to you, that Petrov. She was crazy. She saw conspiracies everywhere. A crazy woman couldn't have gathered so much accurate evidence, the investigator objected. Morozov fell silent. His eyes took on the very expression Anna had described in her diary, as if he were planning a murder. Who was he? A victim of circumstances or a cold-blooded killer? A nervous veterinarian or a calculating criminal? The interrogation continued. The investigators methodically pieced together the scheme that Anna Petrova had revealed. Morozov infected the animals, then treated them for money from the farm, and then sold the diseased meat as healthy. How many children were poisoned by your meat? Vasiliev asked. No one was poisoned, Morozov exclaimed. It's all lies. But the documents told a different story. There was an outbreak of intestinal infections among children in the regional hospital in the fall of 1998. The source of the infection was not officially established, but the time frame coincided. Anna Petrova could have stopped the epidemic, the investigator said harshly. She gathered evidence and was preparing to go to the prosecutor. And someone killed her. Morozov was silent. His hands were clenched into fists. Who killed Anna Petrova? A nervous veterinarian who was afraid of being exposed? A greedy director protecting his business, or a weak-willed husband who was paid to keep quiet? All the clues pointed in different directions. All the suspects had motives. But which one of them raised a hand against a mother of two who simply wanted to protect her fellow villagers from poisoning? Part 2. Why did he do it? Alexei Morozov sat in a chair, his fists clenched white. A nervous tic twitched his left eye with redoubled force. He was 78 years old, but his hands still remembered how to hold a syringe. Show us your hands, Investigator Vasiliev asked unexpectedly. Morozov flinched. He slowly unclenched his fists. Old scars were visible on the knuckles of his right hand, characteristic marks from blows against a hard surface. What's this? The forensic expert pointed. I fell when I was young, the old man muttered. I hit some rebar. Vasiliev exchanged glances with his colleague. It was too much of a coincidence. The scars on his hands, the rebar as a murder weapon. Alexey Ivanovich, do you remember what you were doing on the night of October 15th, 1998? Morozov was silent for several long seconds. The room was deathly quiet. I was on duty at the veterinary clinic, as always. Alone? Alone. Any witnesses? Morozov shuddered. 21 years ago, he didn't think anyone would check his alibi so thoroughly. I don't remember. It was a long time ago. The investigators knew that it was practically impossible to verify an alibi from 20 years ago. But Morozov's behavior spoke for itself. This was exactly what a guilty man looked like. Tell me about your work at the state farm. Vasiliev changed tactics. What did you do besides treating animals? Morozov perked up. Talking about his profession seemed safe to him. Just regular veterinary work, vaccinations, treatment, disease prevention. Did you conduct any experiments? What kind of experiments? Infection of animals, to study diseases. Morozov's face changed. His sharp features became even sharper. I don't know what you're talking about. But the investigators knew. Anna's diary contained detailed notes about how the veterinarian deliberately infected healthy piglets. Anna Petrova saw you giving injections to healthy animals, Vasiliev said harshly. And a week later, you declared an epidemic. Morozov turned pale. His breathing quickened. She was lying. She always had a tendency to fantasize. Fantasy? The investigator took some photographs out of a folder. Here are the pictures Anna took. Dead piglets with characteristic symptoms of poisoning. The black and white photographs showed swollen bellies, bloody foam coming out of their mouths, and twisted legs. Classic signs of acute poisoning. It could have been anything. Morozov insisted stubbornly. Infection, poor feed, stress. Or deliberate infection, the investigator countered. You injected the piglets with pathogens and then treated them for money from the farm. The system was simple and cynical. Morozov infected the animals, declared an epidemic a few days later, and demanded money for expensive treatment. Some of the piglets died and were written off as inevitable losses. The survivors were cured and sold to the meat processing plant as healthy animals. It was a triple profit. Money for treatment, money for sales, plus kickbacks from the meat processing plant for supplying cheap raw materials. How many children were poisoned by your meat? Vasiliev repeated the question. No one was poisoned, Morozov exploded. The meat passed sanitary inspection. Inspections carried out by you? The old man fell silent. He had fallen into his own trap. In the regional archives, investigators found medical records of children hospitalized in the fall of 1998. The diagnosis was the same: acute intestinal infection of unknown origin. 23 children, aged between 3 and 7. The source of the infection was not officially established, but all the children attended kindergartens that were supplied with meat from the Rosvet State Farm. 23 children, Vasiliev said slowly, looking Morozov in the eye. Because of your greed. His nervous tic became almost convulsive. Morozov swallowed convulsively, unable to find the words. Anna Petrova could have stopped this epidemic, the investigator continued. She had all the evidence. Photographs, documents, witness statements. What witnesses? Morozov asked in a hoarse voice. The piglets. The same 10 piglets that disappeared with her. Fear appeared in the old man's eyes. Real, animal fear. You killed them along with Anna, Vasiliev stated. You destroyed the living evidence of your crimes. Morozov was silent. His hands were shaking more and more. The investigators decided to apply psychological pressure. They took Morozov to the scene of the crime, where Sergei Volkov had found the remains. The area looked peaceful. Pigs grazed nearby, paying no attention to the visitors. Only Marfa approached and stared at the old man for a long time with her intelligent eyes. "She recognizes him," remarked one of the operatives. Morozov recoiled from the pig. His eyes were filled with superstitious horror. "They remember," he whispered. "Animals always remember." "Remember what?" Vasiliev asked quickly. Morozov caught himself, but it was too late. He had already given himself away. "Nothing, just said that." But his behavior spoke volumes. This man had been here before, on the night of the murder. "Tell us how it happened," the investigator suggested gently. "It will make you feel better." Morozov shook his head, but something resembling relief appeared in his eyes. 21 years of silence weighed heavily on his soul. "She came to me that night," the old man began unexpectedly. "To the sanatorium with piglets." Vasiliev held his breath. "A confession. She came and what?" "She demanded an explanation. She screamed that she had figured everything out. She threatened to go to the prosecutor's office." Morozov spoke monotonously, as if telling someone else's story. "And the piglets?" "They were sick, the ones that got sick naturally." Even now, he couldn't admit to deliberately infecting the animals. Anna said the piglets were living proof, that the examination would show the disease was man-made. At that moment, Morozov realized that his scheme had been exposed. Anna knew everything. She had documents, photographs, and now living witnesses, sick piglets with characteristic symptoms. "I offered her money," the old man continued. "A lot of money, for her silence." "And what did she say?" "She refused. She said that children are more important than money." Anna Petrova stood in the veterinary clinic with a cage of piglets and looked at Morozov with contempt. She knew that this man had poisoned children for profit. "Then I realized that she would ruin me." Morozov's voice became even quieter. "Prison, disgrace, the end of my career." "And you decided to kill her?" "No," the old man exclaimed. "I didn't plan to kill her." "But what happened on that October night in 1998? Morozov spoke haltingly, pausing frequently. The picture was pieced together, bit by bit. Anna arrived at the veterinary clinic around midnight. She brought a cage with 10 piglets, the very ones Morozov had infected a week earlier. The animals were in serious condition, but still alive. "Here are your victims," Anna said, placing the cage on the table. "Tomorrow morning, I'm taking them to the regional laboratory for examination." Morozov tried to dissuade her. He offered money, threatened dismissal, and cited family circumstances. But Anna was adamant. 23 children are in the hospital," she repeated. "Because of your greed, 23 children could have died." "You can't prove that," Morozov objected. "I can prove it. I have all the evidence." Anna took a thick folder out of her bag. It contained photographs of dead piglets, copies of invoices, and certificates with Morozov's forged signature. "I spent a year gathering this evidence," she said. "A year watching you poison animals and then sell the poisoned meat to children." Morozov realized there was no way out. If Anna went to the prosecutor's office, his life would be over. Prison, trial, public disgrace. I grabbed a piece of rebar. The old man admitted hoarsely. "I just wanted to scare her." A piece of rebar lay in the corner of the veterinary clinic, propping up the door to the storeroom. Morozov picked up the metal rod. "Give me the documents," he demanded. "Never," Anna replied. "Then I'll take them myself." Morozov stepped toward the woman. Anna backed away, clutching the folder to her chest. "You wouldn't dare," she said. "I have children." "And I have my life," Morozov replied. The old man remembered what happened next, as if in a fog. Anna tried to run away. Morozov caught up with her at the exit. She turned around, trying to protect herself with the folder. The metal bar came down on her head. "One blow," Morozov whispered. "I just wanted to knock her out." But Anna fell and did not get up. Blood spread in a dark stain across the concrete floor of the sanatorium. "I didn't want to kill her," the old man repeated. "I just wanted to take the documents." But the documents were splattered with blood, and Anna Petrova lay motionless, her skull crushed. Morozov realized there was no turning back. He had killed a person. Now he had to hide the crime. First, he destroyed the piglets that had witnessed the crime. The very same 10 animals that could prove his guilt. He killed them with a piece of rebar, just like their owner. Then he set about covering his tracks. He wrapped Anna's body in a tarpaulin and loaded it into the cart along with the dead piglets. In the darkness, he drove to an abandoned lot outside the village. I dug a hole all night long. First, I buried the piglets, then the woman's body. I threw the rebar in after them as material evidence. "What about the documents?" Vasiliev asked. "I burned them," Morozov replied. "I burned everything in the veterinary clinic." But that was a lie. The investigators knew that Anna had hidden some of her documents in a metal box. The prudent woman had prepared for the worst. Gromov came in the morning. Morozov continued. He found out about Anna's disappearance. I told him she hadn't come to see me. The director of the state farm believed him, or pretended to believe him. It was also in his interest for the inconvenient witness to disappear. The local police officer, Krotov, conducted a formal investigation. He questioned several people, inspected the Petrovs' house, and drew up reports. But he didn't bother to look for the body. It was too much trouble and too dangerous. Did Gromov pay him to close the case quickly? Vasiliev asked. I don't know. Morozov shrugged. But the case was closed very quickly. Too quickly for the disappearance of a mother of 2 children. Morozov lived with this secret for 21 years. He continued to work on the collective farm, then retired. He never told anyone about the nighttime murder. Did you have nightmares? The investigator asked. Every night, the old man admitted. She came to me in my dreams, with those piglets. Anna Petrova haunted the killer even after her death. The dead woman demanded justice. And when did the pigs start digging up the ground? Morozov shuddered. That was what he feared most. That someone would find the burial site. I read in the newspaper about the new farmer. He whispered. I realized that sooner or later the truth would come out. Animals can smell death even after many years. Sergei Volkov's pigs instinctively knew that the remains of their long-dead owner were buried there. The investigators got a full confession. Morozov told them all the details of the crime he had committed 21 years ago. The examination confirmed his words. The DNA on the rebar matched the samples taken from Morozov. The scars on the knuckles corresponded to the nature of blows to a hard surface. Alexei Ivanovich Morozov, you are charged with the murder of Anna Petrova, Vasiliev announced officially. The old man nodded. A strange look of relief appeared in his eyes. Finally, he whispered. I've been waiting for this moment for 21 years. The questions remained. The main one was, why did Morozov become a murderer? What drove the veterinarian to commit the crime? The answer lay in the old man's past, in his childhood, his character, his life circumstances. Alexei Morozov was born in 1941 into a peasant family. His father died in the war, and his mother raised 3 children alone. Poverty, hunger, and a constant struggle for survival marked the early years of his life. "I always wanted a better life," Morozov told investigators. "As a child, I dreamed of being well-fed, of nice clothes, of money." His veterinary education gave him a chance to climb the social ladder. But a doctor's salary in a rural area was small. With a wife, 2 children, and a sick mother, it was difficult to support his family. "I envied the city dwellers," the old man admitted. "I saw how factory directors and party bosses lived, and I realized that you couldn't earn that kind of money by working honestly." The corruption scheme involving piglets began in the mid-1990s. At first, it was timid and cautious. Then it became bolder and more cynical. "Money clouded my mind," Morozov explained. "I forgot about my medical oath and about humanity." In 3 years, he earned an amount comparable to 10 years of honest work. He bought a house in the district center, a car, and gave his children a good education. "And everything was fine until this Petrova appeared," he added bitterly. Anna became a threat to the well-being that Morozov had built over the years. She could destroy not only his career, but also his family's future. "I couldn't let her ruin everything," the old man justified himself. "I had children too." But his children were not lying in the hospital with acute poisoning, unlike the 23 children who suffered from contaminated meat. Psychologists determined Morozov's personality type: a narcissistic psychopath with a pronounced thirst for profit. Such people are capable of any crime for material gain. He feels no guilt for the poisoned children, the expert concluded. For him, they were just an obstacle on the path to enrichment. Even Anna Morozov's murder was perceived not as a tragedy, but as an unfortunate inevitability. "It's her own fault," he insisted. "She shouldn't have stuck her nose into other people's business." Investigators uncovered other episodes of the veterinarian's criminal activity. Over the years working at the state farm, he repeatedly falsified documents, sold sick animals, and received kickbacks from drug suppliers. It was a whole system. Vasiliev concluded. Anna's murder was just the tip of the iceberg. But the most terrifying discovery was yet to come. A more detailed examination of medical records revealed that 23 children were not the full list of victims. Many cases of poisoning had not been officially recorded. Rural doctors diagnosed flu, colds, and stomach upsets. Parents treated their children with home remedies without going to the hospital. The true number of victims could be in the hundreds, suggested the chief physician of the regional hospital. 100 children. 100 little lives lost because of one man's greed. Morozov listened to these figures without showing any emotion. 21 years of murder and poisoning had dulled his conscience completely. "Not proven," he repeated mechanically. "No connection has been established." But the connection was obvious. The time frame, the geography of the disease's spread, the nature of the symptoms, everything pointed to contaminated meat from the Rasvet farm. The investigation was coming to an end. Morozov was exposed, confessed to the murders, and gave detailed testimony. All that remained was to pass sentence. But what punishment could be sufficient for such crimes? For the murder of a mother of 2 children? For the poisoning of hundreds of babies? For 21 years of impunity? Russian law does not have a statute of limitations for murder. Morozov could have been sentenced to life imprisonment despite his age. "Justice will prevail," promised the regional prosecutor. "The criminal will receive his just punishment." But at what cost did this justice come? Anna Petrova died 21 years ago. Her children grew up as orphans. Those affected by the poisoning were left with lifelong health problems. And Alexei Morozov lived as a free man for 21 years. He raised his children, received a pension, and enjoyed the fruits of his criminal activities. Better late than never, investigator Vasiliev remarked philosophically. Morozov was taken into custody. The 78-year-old man sat in a remand cell, awaiting trial. His family disowned him. The children he had wanted so much to provide for refused even to visit their murderous father. "We didn't know," they told reporters. "If we had known, we would have turned him into the police ourselves." The story received widespread publicity. Journalists wrote about the case of the killer veterinarian, and television stations filmed documentaries. Sergei Volkov, the farmer who found the remains, became the hero of the investigation. It was his pigs that led to the solving of a crime that had been unsolved for 20 years. "Animals feel more than we think," Sergei said in an interview. "They helped bring justice." The site where the remains were found has become a place of pilgrimage. People brought flowers, lit candles, and prayed for Anna Petrova's soul. Her children, now adults, learned the truth about their mother's fate for the first time in 21 years. "We always hoped she was alive," Anna's daughter said, "that she was building a new life somewhere far away." Now there was no hope left. But there was an understanding. Their mother had died a hero, protecting her children from poisoners. Morozov was preparing for trial. His lawyer advised him to ask for leniency, citing his advanced age and remorse. But there was no remorse. The old man regretted only that he had been caught. "If it weren't for those pigs," he muttered in his cell, "everything would have been fine." Even now, Morozov did not understand the monstrosity of his crimes. For him, murder and poisoning were simply an unfortunate coincidence. Psychiatrists found him sane. They found no mental disorders that could mitigate his guilt. "A classic case of moral deformity," concluded the expert. "A complete lack of empathy and conscience." The trial was scheduled for December 2019. The public awaited justice, but even the harshest sentence could not bring Anna Petrova back to life. It could not heal the children who had suffered from the poisoned meat. It could not erase 21 years of pain and injustice. Morozov sat in his cell and thought about the past. About that October evening in 1998, when his life was divided into before and after. What made him raise his hand against a woman? What turned a doctor into a murderer? Why did he do it? The truth turned out to be more terrifying. Part 3. Justice prevails December morning, 2019. A crowd of journalists gathered outside the regional court building. Cameras, microphones, recording equipment. Everything was ready to cover the trial of the century. The case of Alexei Morozov, the veterinarian who murdered a woman, had captured the attention of the entire country. The crime, committed 20 years earlier and solved thanks to the behavior of pigs, seemed like the plot of a detective novel. The 78-year-old defendant looked pitiful, a hunched figure in a prison uniform, his hands trembling, his eyes dull. It was hard to believe that this frail old man was capable of murder. But the facts spoke for themselves. Presiding Judge Igor Volkonsky read out the charges. Murder, concealment of a crime, professional negligence, causing bodily harm. The list was impressive. "Defendant, do you plead guilty?" the judge asked formally. Morozov raised his head. Something like hope flashed in his eyes. "Partially," he replied hoarsely. "The death was accidental." The courtroom erupted. The victims' relatives looked at each other in outrage. After fully confessing during the investigation, Morozov decided to partially recant his testimony. His lawyer, a young ambitious lawyer named Denis Kramarov, tried to present the case in a favorable light. According to his version, Anna's death was the result of an accident, not intentional murder. My client did not plan to take Anna Petrova's life, Kramarov declared. A tragic accident occurred during the conflict. State prosecutor Elena Severova responded harshly, "The defendant struck the victim multiple times on the head with a piece of rebar. This was not an accident, but a brutal murder." The trial promised to be long and dramatic. The first witnesses called by the prosecution were called to the stand. Investigator Vasiliev gave a detailed account of the investigation, the discovery of the remains, and the defendant's confession. Morozov described the circumstances of the murder in detail, Vasiliev said. His version completely coincided with the findings of the forensic examination. Then Sergei Volkov, the farmer whose pigs led to the discovery of the crime, took the stand. The burly man spoke calmly but convincingly. The animals sensed something was wrong from the very first day, Sergei said. They dug persistently in one spot, as if trying to find something. The courtroom fell silent when Klavdia Semenovna, the victim's neighbor, took the stand. The 80-year-old woman had difficulty moving, but her memory was clear. "Anechka came to me that evening, very upset," the old woman said in a trembling voice. She said she caught Morozov cheating, that he was poisoning the piglets on purpose. Morozov fidgeted nervously in the dock. His lawyer was furiously writing something down in his notebook. Anna said, "Tomorrow I'm going to the prosecutor. I can't keep quiet any longer when children are suffering," continued Klavdia Semenovna. Those were her last words. The emotional tension in the courtroom reached its peak when Anna Petrova's children approached the witness stand. They were now in their 30s, but the pain of their loss was still evident in their eyes. Anna's daughter, Svetlana, worked as a teacher in the regional center. Her son, Mikhail, became an engineer. Both grew up in an orphanage, deprived of their mother's love. "For 21 years, we didn't know the truth," said Svetlana, unable to hold back her tears. "We thought our mother had abandoned us. Only now do we understand that she died a hero." Mikhail was more reserved, but his voice trembled with anger. "That man took our mother away from us for money. He destroyed our family. How many children have suffered from his greed?" Morozov listened with his head bowed. A nervous tic twitched his left eye, more and more violently. The testimony of the parents of children who had suffered from the poisoned meat was particularly difficult to hear. Several families whose children had been hospitalized in the fall of 1998 were invited into the courtroom. Tamara Ivanovna Kuznetsova brought her daughter Olya to the trial. The girl was now 24, but the effects of her childhood poisoning were still evident. "Olya still suffers from digestive problems," her mother said. "The doctors say the effects will last a lifetime." Olga herself, pale and thin, struggled to get up from her seat in the audience. "I remember that fall. Terrible stomach pains, high fever. I thought I was going to die." There were many such stories. 23 cases of poisoning were officially registered, but the real number of victims was much higher. Anatoly Petrovich Semenov, a doctor at the regional hospital, presented medical data. All the children had the same symptoms: acute intestinal infection caused by eating contaminated food. "Can you say with certainty that the source of the infection was meat from the Rasvet State Farm?" asked Morozova's lawyer. "With a high degree of probability, yes," replied the doctor. The time frame, the geography of the spread, the nature of the disease, everything points to this source. The testimony of former district police officer Nikolai Krotov was key. The 85-year-old man arrived at the court in a wheelchair, but spoke clearly and distinctly. "I was forced to close the case," Krotov admitted. The director of the state farm, Gromov, called the district police department, demanded that the investigation be stopped. "Why did you obey?" asked the prosecutor. "I was afraid of losing my job. I had a family, children. But I regretted that decision for the rest of my life." Krotov recounted how Gromov offered him money to quickly close the case, how he threatened dismissal and criminal prosecution, how he promised a transfer to a quieter district. "Anna Petrova deserved a fair investigation," said the former district police officer. "I betrayed her memory." Morozov listened to the testimony with a stony face. Only a nervous tic betrayed his agitation. On the fourth day of the trial, the defense took the floor. Lawyer Kramarov tried to portray his client as a victim of circumstances. "Alexei Morozov is not a vicious criminal, but a man who found himself in a difficult situation," he said. "Anna Petrova's death was the result of an accident." According to the defense, Morozov did not plan the murder. He only wanted to dissuade Anna from going to the prosecutor's office. The conflict arose spontaneously, and the blow with the pipe was struck in a state of emotional distress. "My client regrets what he has done," Kramarov continued. "He has been tormented by remorse for 21 years. But this version seemed unconvincing. Too many facts pointed to premeditation. Morozov prepared the metal bar in advance. He carefully planned how to cover his tracks. He killed the piglets that could have been witnesses. He burned the documents. All of this pointed not to an accident, but to cold-blooded calculation. Prosecutor Severova methodically dismantled the defense's arguments. The defendant committed not one, but a series of crimes. Murder, concealment of evidence, destruction of evidence. These are not the actions of an emotional criminal, but of a calculating one. She reminded the court of the children who had suffered from the poisoned meat. She spoke of Morozov's years of corruption. She said that he had continued to work at the farm after the murder, as if nothing had happened. "This man enjoyed 21 years of freedom while his victim lay in the ground," Severova said angrily. "He does not deserve leniency." The moment came for the defendant's final statement. Morozov slowly rose from the bench. A dead silence fell over the courtroom. "I didn't want to kill her," the old man began hoarsely. "It was a tragic accident." He spoke of his difficult childhood, of his desire to provide for his family, of how he never planned to harm Anna Petrova. "If I could turn back time, I would have done things differently," Morozov said. "But you can't change the past." His speech sounded fake. Even now, in the dock, he didn't seem truly sorry. "Please take into account my advanced age and state of health," Morozov concluded. The courtroom responded to his words with dead silence. The court retired to deliberate. The wait for the verdict lasted 3 hours. The victim's relatives smoked nervously in the hallway. Journalists made predictions. Finally, Judge Volkonsky returned to the courtroom. Everyone stood up. "In the name of the Russian Federation," he began solemnly, "the court sentences Alexei Ivanovich Morozov to life imprisonment." The courtroom erupted in applause. The victims' relatives hugged each other and cried with relief. Justice had finally prevailed. Morozov listened to the verdict without showing any emotion. Only his nervous tic became more pronounced. He understood that at his age, he would never be released. The lawyer immediately announced his intention to appeal, but there was little chance of a reduced sentence. The evidence of guilt was too convincing. The court also ordered compensation to be paid to the families of the victims. Anna Petrova's children were awarded 2 million rubles each. The families of the poisoned children received between 100,000 and 1 million rubles, depending on the severity of the consequences. The money was recovered from the property of Morozov and his accomplices. The house in the district center, the dacha, the car, everything went to compensate the victims. But no amount of money could compensate for the loss of a mother or the damaged health of the children. After the verdict was announced, Anna's children came out to the journalists. Svetlana struggled to contain her emotions. Mom finally got justice. We waited 21 years for this moment. Mikhail was more reserved. The verdict won't bring our mother back, but at least other families will be protected from criminals like this. Sergei Volkov, a pioneering farmer, was also present at the sentencing. His pigs became real heroes of the investigation. Animals feel more than we think, he told reporters. They helped find the truth. The site where the remains were found has long since become a place of remembrance. People came here from all over the region, bringing flowers and lighting candles. The local administration decided to erect a memorial here. The monument to Anna Petrova is a simple granite obelisk with her photo and the inscription, "Died protecting children from poisoners." The entire village gathered for the opening ceremony. A priest held a memorial service. Anna's children laid wreaths at the foot of the monument. Mom always said that silence is complicity, said Svetlana. She couldn't keep quiet when children were in danger. Sergei Volkov's pigs no longer dug the ground in that spot. It was as if their mission had been accomplished. They helped find the truth and restore justice. The story resonated throughout the country. Documentaries, books, and articles all told the story of the rural pig farmer's feat and the tragedy that had been hidden for 21 years. But the main result was something else. Food quality checks began throughout Russia. Control over the activities of veterinarians was tightened. Punishments for trading in contaminated meat were increased. Anna Petrova's death was not in vain, said the Minister of Agriculture. Her feat will save the lives of many children. Morozov was transferred to a strict regime colony, a cell for life prisoners, complete isolation. At 78 years old, he is unlikely to live out his sentence. His family completely disowned him. His children changed their last name and moved to other cities. His grandchildren will never know the truth about their murderous grandfather. Former farm director Mikhail Gromov also got punished. The court found him guilty of being part of the corruption scheme and sentenced him to 15 years in prison. Local cop Krotov got off the hook because the statute of limitations ran out, but he carried the moral punishment for the rest of his life. "I betrayed the memory of an innocent woman," he said in an interview. "It is a sin that cannot be atoned for." A year has passed since the trial. A second monument has been erected in the village of Malinovka, dedicated to the 10 piglets that died alongside their owner. It was a small obelisk with the inscription, "To faithful companions who shared their fate." Sergei Volkov turned his farm into a model farm. Tourists came to see the famous detective pigs. The farmer donated part of the profits to a fund to help children in need. "This land has seen a lot of grief," said Sergei. "Now let it bring only joy." Anna Petrova's children created a charitable foundation in their mother's name. The foundation helped families affected by unscrupulous food producers. Mom dreamed of a world where children would be protected from poisoners, Svetlana explained the fund's goals. We are continuing her work. The story of the pig farmer who disappeared in 1998 became a symbol of the struggle for justice. Proof that the truth will always find a way to the surface. It took 21 years for the crime to be solved, but justice prevailed in the end. The murderer received his deserved punishment. The victims received posthumous rehabilitation. Morozov died in prison 3 years after his sentence. He had a heart attack in a maximum security cell. No one came to his funeral. His grave is lost among thousands of others in the prison cemetery. And on the spot where Anna's remains were found, snowdrops bloom every spring. They are the first flowers to break through the ground and reach the light. Local residents say that it is Anna Petrova's soul rejoicing in the spring, rejoicing that truth has finally triumphed over lies, that justice has prevailed, albeit 21 years late. Sergei Volkov's pigs graze peacefully next to the memorial. Sometimes they approach the monument as if paying tribute to the dead swineherd. Animals remember, animals do not forget. And when justice is long in coming, they themselves show people the way to the truth. The story is over, but the memory of the feat of a simple peasant woman who gave her life to protect children will live forever. Anna Petrova died a hero, and that is the main thing to remember. What do you think? Was it worth Anna risking her life to save other people's children? Or should she have kept quiet for her own safety?